The bell above the restaurant door jingled as a woman strutted in, her heels clicking sharply against the polished wooden floor. Madeline's Bistro was a cozy, family-owned place, known for its warm atmosphere, comforting food, and friendly staff. But the moment this woman walked in, the energy shifted. Her name was Karen Lancaster, a woman in her mid-50s, dressed in an expensive beige coat, designer handbag hanging from her arm, and an air of entitlement clinging to her like a thick perfume. She glanced around with an upturned nose, eyes scanning the restaurant like she was inspecting something beneath her standards. At that moment, Ava Johnson, a young black waitress in her early 20s, stepped forward with a bright, professional smile. Ava had been working at Madeline's Bistro for 2 years, and she loved her job. She had dreams of opening her own restaurant one day, saving every dollar she could while balancing college classes. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "Welcome to Madeline's. Would you like to be seated inside or on the patio?" Ava asked politely, holding a menu in her hands. Karen barely looked at her, instead shifting uncomfortably as if standing too close to Ava made her uneasy. "Inside," she muttered, not even bothering to meet Ava's eyes. Ava led her to a table by the window. The restaurant was lively, filled with regular customers chatting over their meals. The aroma of fresh bread and roasted garlic lingered in the air, a signature of the bistro's homemade dishes. As Karen sat down, she pulled out a bottle of hand sanitizer from her bag and rubbed it aggressively on her hands before placing it on the table with an exaggerated sigh. Ava chose to ignore the gesture, keeping her professional smile intact. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" Ava asked. Karen huffed. "Water, with lemon. And make sure the glass is clean. I don't want any lipstick stains or fingerprints." Ava nodded and turned to leave, but before she could take a step, Karen spoke again. "And don't take too long. I don't have all day." The sharpness in her tone was clear. Ava could already tell. This was going to be a difficult customer, but she was used to people like this, or at least she thought she was. Something about Karen's presence unsettled Ava. It wasn't just the rudeness, it was the way the woman looked at her, like she didn't belong here. It wasn't the first time Ava had dealt with discrimination. She'd grown up hearing whispers and facing cold stares in certain places, but here, in her workplace, where she had always felt safe, it felt different. Ava brushed off the uneasy feeling and returned with Karen's water. She placed it carefully on the table. "Here you go, ma'am. Are you ready to order, or would you like a few minutes?" Karen sighed dramatically, as if even being spoken to was an inconvenience. She glanced at the menu for a split second before snapping it shut. "I'll have the grilled salmon. No butter, no sauce, no seasoning, just plain, and steamed vegetables, but no carrots. I hate carrots." Ava nodded, jotting it down. "Got it. I'll put that in for you," Karen scoffed. Hopefully, the kitchen understands what plain means. Ava forced a smile. "They will. Your meal should be out shortly." As she walked away, she could feel Karen's eyes on her, like a weight pressing against her back. And then, the whisper started. Karen wasn't alone anymore. Another customer, a woman in a floral blouse sitting a few tables away, had leaned over and was now whispering something to Karen. Karen smirked and nodded, her eyes still locked onto Ava. Ava's heart sank. She had been in this situation before. She knew the look, the murmurs, the judgment. But what she didn't know was just how bad it was going to get. When the food arrived, Ava carefully placed the plate in front of Karen. "Here's your grilled salmon and steamed vegetables, without carrots as requested. Let me know if you need anything else." Karen picked up her fork and prodded the salmon with an expression of pure disgust. "What is this?" she demanded. Ava blinked. "That's the grilled salmon, ma'am. Just as you ordered, plain with no butter, sauce, or seasoning." Karen scoffed loudly, her voice carrying across the restaurant. "You call this edible? This is dry. This is why I hate places like this. No standards. Unbelievable." The nearby customers turned their heads. Some whispered to each other, while others just watched, their expressions uncomfortable. Ava's face warmed, but she stayed calm. "I'm sorry it's not to your liking. Would you like me to take it back to the kitchen?" "I don't want to wait another 30 minutes for incompetence," Karen snapped. "You people never get things, right?" Ava's stomach tightened. "You people?" She felt her breath hitch, but before she could respond, Karen reached for her glass of water. And then it happened. The next thing Ava knew, her uniform was soaked. Karen had accidentally knocked the glass over, sending cold water cascading down Ava's front. A gasp rippled through the restaurant. "Oh dear," Karen said, her voice sickly sweet. "I guess you're just as clumsy as you are slow." For the first time, Ava saw it, the deliberate cruelty in Karen's eyes. This wasn't just about bad service. It was about something more. Tears burned at the edges of Ava's vision, but she refused to let them fall. The restaurant was silent now. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. And then, from across the room, a deep, commanding voice broke the silence. "Is there a problem here?" Ava turned, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, his arms crossed and his expression deadly serious, was Mr. Carter, the restaurant owner. And from the look on his face, Karen had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Ava stood frozen, water dripping from her uniform, her face burning with humiliation. The entire restaurant was silent, every eye locked onto the scene. The woman in the floral blouse, Karen's apparent gossip partner, looked amused. But Karen? Karen simply smirked, leaning back in her chair with the confidence of someone who believed she was untouchable. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. Mr. Carter, the owner of Madeline's Bistro, stepped forward. He was a tall man in his early 50s, dressed in a crisp button-down and dark slacks. His presence commanded attention, not just because he was the owner, but because he carried himself with an authority that made people listen. He glanced at Ava first, his sharps, eyes scanning her soaked uniform, the distress on her face. Then, slowly, he turned his gaze toward Karen, and his expression darkened. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I couldn't help but notice there seems to be an issue." Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, now the owner is involved? Fantastic. I was just pointing out the horrible service I received. This waitress is slow, incompetent, and frankly, she's ruined my meal." The restaurant was dead silent, as if the entire place was holding its breath. Ava felt her hands clench at her sides. She knew how this usually played out. The customer was always right. Management would offer an apology, maybe a discount, and she would be forced to swallow her pride. But Mr. Carter? He didn't move. His expression didn't change. And then he did something that no one expected. Mr. Carter turned toward Ava. His voice was gentle, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ava," he said, "are you all right?" Ava hesitated. I'm fine." "Are you sure?" His gaze was serious. "Because I just watched that entire interaction, and from what I saw, you did nothing wrong." A ripple of whispers spread through the restaurant. Karen's smug expression faltered for the first time. Mr. Carter turned back to Karen, his voice cool and steady. "I take customer complaints very seriously," he said, "but I also take the dignity of my employees seriously." Karen blinked, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Dignity? Are you seriously taking her side over a paying customer?" Mr. Carter let out a short, humorless laugh. "A paying customer?" He gestured toward the untouched plate of food. "You haven't even paid for your meal yet. But let's get to the real issue, shall we?" Karen stiffened. "And what issue is that?" "The issue," he said, his voice hardening, "is that this isn't about the food. It's about how you see people like Ava. It's about the way you looked at her, the way you spoke to her, the way you deliberately tried to humiliate her." The tension in the room was thick. Karen scoffed. "Oh, please, don't start with the victim nonsense. I have every right to complain if the service is bad. That's how the world works." Mr. Carter nodded. "You're right. Customers can complain. But that wasn't what you were doing. His eyes narrowed. You didn't complain about the food until after you had already insulted her. You didn't spill that water by accident. You wanted to put Ava in her place. Karen's mouth opened and then snapped shut. You see, Mr. Carter continued, I don't tolerate mistreatment of my employees, and I especially don't tolerate discrimination. Now, the entire restaurant was staring at Karen. Her face flushed red. Oh, give me a break. You're just playing the race card. Mr. Carter's expression didn't change. I don't play games, ma'am, but I do make rules. And one of my biggest rules? He stepped forward, lowering his voice just slightly. We don't serve racists here. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back muttered, Whoa! Karen's face twisted in pure outrage. Excuse me? You heard me, Mr. Carter said smoothly. You are no longer welcome in my restaurant. Karen shot up from her chair. You can't do that. You can't just kick me out because I complained. Mr. Carter raised an eyebrow. I can and I am. This is discrimination. I'll sue you. He smiled. For what? Not tolerating disrespect? Go ahead. I'll be happy to explain to a judge how you deliberately harassed my employee, insulted my staff, and tried to humiliate a young woman just trying to do her job. And guess what? Every single person here saw it happen. Karen's eyes flickered across the restaurant, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. And that's when the applause started. It began with a slow clap from a man at the counter. Then a woman near the entrance joined in. Within seconds, the entire restaurant erupted into cheers and applause. Karen's face burned crimson. This is outrageous! You people are all… She didn't even finish her sentence. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. But just as she reached it, Mr. Carter added one final blow. Oh, and ma'am? Karen paused, turning slightly. Don't come back. And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. As soon as Karen was gone, the tension in the room broke. Someone laughed. Another person called out, That was the best thing I've seen all week. But Mr. Carter wasn't focused on them. He turned back to Ava, his expression softening. Come with me, he said gently. Ava hesitated. Sir, You need a break. She swallowed hard, emotions she had pushed down now rising to the surface. Thank you, Mr. Carter nodded. Take a moment, and when you're ready, I want you to know something. Ava looked up. What? You are valued. Not just as my employee, but as a person. Never let anyone make you feel otherwise. Tears welled in Ava's eyes, but this time they weren't from humiliation. They were from something she hadn't expected to feel today. Respect. For the rest of the day, Ava tried to shake off what had happened. She had dealt with rude customers before, but Karen was something different. The deliberate cruelty, the way she looked at her, as if she was lesser, it left a weight on Ava's chest. But the standing ovation from the restaurant, that was something she never expected. And Mr. Carter? His words had meant more to her than she could put into words. Still, as she finished her shift and changed into her hoodie to head home, a strange feeling settled in her gut. Something told her, this wasn't over. The next morning, Ava woke up to a buzzing phone. Dozens of notifications. Her heart pounded as she opened her messages. Her best friend, Maya, had sent her a frantic text. Maya, girl, go check Facebook, now. Ava's fingers trembled as she tapped open the app, and there it was, a viral post. The headline made her stomach drop. Racist restaurant owner kicks out innocent customer for no reason. The post had a picture of Karen, looking tearful, clutching her designer bag as if she had been attacked. In the caption, Karen completely twisted the story. I was publicly humiliated for simply asking for better service. This so-called family restaurant supports discrimination against paying customers. I was shamed, kicked out, and threatened by the owner. We can't let this kind of behavior continue in America. Boycott this place. Ava's stomach dropped. The comment section was a war zone. Disgusting. I'll never eat there again. They need to be shut down. That poor woman. How could they treat her like that? Karen had flipped the entire story. And worse? People believed her. Ava's heart pounded as she scrolled. But then another wave of comments appeared. Wait, I was there. That woman was the one being racist, not the restaurant. I saw everything. Ava did nothing wrong. This is fake. Karen was the one who humiliated the waitress. Ava exhaled sharply. Not everyone believed Karen's lies, but enough people did that it was spreading like wildfire. And the worst part? It was only going to get worse. By noon, Madeline's Bistro was under siege. The phone rang non-stop with angry calls. Is this the racist restaurant? How dare you? Treat customers like that? We're reporting you to the media. On Yelp, one-star reviews flooded in, many from people who had never even been there. Terrible place. Owner is racist. Do not eat here. They threw out an innocent woman just for asking for better service. Shut this place down. Even the restaurant's Instagram was under attack. People were posting comments with boycott Madeline's. Mr. Carter sat in his office, his jaw clenched. He had seen a lot in his years as a business owner. But this was dangerous. Ava stood in the doorway, hands balled into fists. Mr. Carter, what do we do? He exhaled slowly. We fight back, but we do it the right way. By late afternoon, everything changed. A customer from the restaurant, one of the people who had watched the entire scene, posted a video. Here's what really happened at Madeline's Bistro today. Watch before you believe the lies. The video showed everything. Then, the worst thing possible happened to Karen. Someone recognized her. A former coworker posted, "Oh, trust me, Karen Lancaster has always been like this. She was fired from our company for mistreating employees. She's a serial liar." The internet erupted. Karen went from innocent victim to national disgrace. By the end of the day, her Facebook account was deleted. Her Yelp review? Removed for false reporting. And the restaurant? It thrived. People rushed to support Madeline's Bistro, leaving 5-star reviews and messages of support. Love this place. Amazing staff. Ava, we stand with you. This restaurant does the right thing. A week later, Ava was finishing up her shift when Mr. Carter called her into his office. She stepped inside nervously. Is something wrong? He smiled. Quite the opposite. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check. Ava's eyes widened. What is this? A raise, Mr. Carter said. And a bonus. You handled that entire situation with more grace than most people ever could. And you know what? What? I think you're ready. He leaned forward. How would you like to start training as a manager? Ava gasped. Are you serious? You have leadership in you, Ava, and I want to help you grow. Because one day, you're not just going to manage a restaurant. Tears pricked at Ava's eyes. One day, I'll own one. He nodded. Exactly. For the first time in her life, Ava realized something. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was rising. And Karen, she had been erased from the internet. But Ava's name was shining. What do you think about this story? Have you ever seen someone get put in their place like this? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. Your support means the world.